All right, let's jump right into it. Today, we're taking a look at a brand new AI framework from Weaviate, and it's called Elysia. The whole idea here is to move past the AI we're all used to, the simple text in, text out thing, and get into something that feels a whole lot smarter.
So think about this for a second. What if an AI didn't just spit back a wall of text? What if it could actually, think through a problem, make some decisions, and then figure out the absolute best way to show you the answer? That's the big question Elysia is trying to solve. And here's the best way to picture it. Traditional AI, what we call retrieval-augmented generation, or RAG, it's kind of like a single one-way road. You put a question in one end, and a block of text comes out the other. Simple. Elysia, on the other hand, is built more like a decision tree. It's got all these different paths it can take, and it actively chooses the best route depending on what you've asked.
So how does Elysia actually pull this off? Well, let's get into what makes it a real decision maker at its core.
So what is it, really? Elysia AI is an open-source framework, and it comes from Weaviate. You probably know them from their vector database. The key idea here is that it's an agentic RAG framework, and that word agentic is the magic ingredient. It basically gives the AI a structured brain, turning it into an agent that makes decisions instead of just being a passive machine that processes text.
Now, what's really fascinating is how this thinking actually works. So let's pop the hood and take a look at the specific features that give Elysia its power.
Okay, so one of the biggest innovations here is something called the decision agent system. Instead of the usual AI black box, we just kind of hope for the best and have no idea how it got the answer, Elysia actually builds out a transparent decision tree. You can literally trace its logic from your question all the way to the final answer.
The whole process is super methodical. Your query comes in, an agent looks at it, and then it picks the right tool for the job. Does it need to search a database, summarize some text, or maybe, and this is important, admit that it can't answer the question? It's a step-by-step logic that makes the whole thing traceable and, honestly, much more reliable.
But here's where it gets even cooler. Elysia's decision-making doesn't stop once it finds the information. It takes things a step further and asks a really important question. What's the absolute best way to show this information to a person?
And this is a perfect example of what they call smart display types. If you ask it to compare two products, instead of getting some long, jumbled paragraph, Elysia can generate a clean, simple table like this one. If you're asking about just one product, it might give you a product card. If it's a bunch of numbers, hey, maybe you get a chart. It picks the right format to help you actually understand the answer.
All right, let's get a little technical for a second, but stick with me because this is a big deal. Chunk on demand. Normally with AI, you have to pre-process all your documents, chop them up into these little fixed-sized pieces. Elysia is way smarter. It only creates these chunks from the relevant documents right when it needs them for your specific query. The result is just way more precise and context-aware.
This is all part of a bigger concept they call data awareness. See, when you connect Elysia to your data, it doesn't just sit there. It actively inspects everything. It looks at the fields, the data distributions, the relationships between different pieces of information, and it uses all that knowledge, along with cool tricks like chunk on demand, to make much, much smarter decisions.
And it's not just about being smart, it's also about being efficient. Elysia has this ability called smart routing. If you ask a simple question, it can use a smaller, faster, and cheaper language model. But if you give it a task that needs some heavy-duty reasoning, it'll automatically send that query to a bigger, more powerful model. This saves a ton of time and money.
And on top of everything else, the system is built to learn. It's got a feedback loop built right in, so it can use your ratings to get better and better over time. The whole system just gets smarter with every single interaction.
Okay, so we've seen all the cool features under the hood. But let's get to the big question. Why does any of this actually matter? What's the real-world impact of all this tech?
It really all boils down to three massive wins. First, you get transparency. You can finally see how the AI is thinking. Second, you get efficiency. It saves compute power and money by always using the right tool. And third, you just get plain better outputs, the right answer delivered in the most useful format possible. And that combination makes Elysia a total game changer for building the next wave of AI apps. We're talking about way smarter customer support bots that can pull up order details on a neat little table, or dynamic data dashboards, or even superpowered research assistants that can effectively summarize and compare different sources for you. So yeah, this really does feel like a peek into the future of how we interact with our data. But the best part is, this isn't some far-off concept. You can actually start building with it right now.
For anyone out there who wants to give this a spin, the team at Weaviate has made it incredibly easy. It's open source, and you can get started with just one simple command in your terminal. Pip install Elysia AI. That's it. You're ready to start experimenting.
And that really brings us full circle. A framework like this represents a pretty big shift. We're moving away from AI as just a tool that tells us stuff and toward a partner that can organize, decide, and present information. So the real question to think about is, what becomes possible when our AI can finally present, not just tell?